think it's live. Are we live? I hope so. What's happening, everybody? Everybody's having a fantastic whatever day you're watching this. So really the thing is that there's really not a whole lot to chat about when it comes to Mopar in general right now. It seems like direct connection is, well, it isn't really there yet. They haven't quite made the connection, so to speak. And as far as anything new coming out, well, you guys know the story with that. It's crickets. About the best that you can hope for realistically is that direct connection starts getting something out there for the rest of us in the world to play with, and that the trucks will actually come out with the new inline twin turbo 6, which will give you something actually really cool to play with. And again, it'll be a direct line of sight to direct connection for hot rod parts, which, if we're being fair, is a much easier sell than any of the NA applications right now. So aside from that, again, what's there to talk about? Nothing new from Mustang really to speak of. Camaro, well, we basically figured that was going away. So the reality that we're looking at right now is a landscape full of, well, lack of a better way of putting it, a lot of vehicles that seem to be looking like they're going extinct. You know, with the Challenger going away, obviously the Hellcat variants being gone, and with the Mustang, in essence, kind of lingering out there while the Camaro basically lit us up, and, you know, with this whole I'm in, I'm out, I'm in, I'm out again routine, I'm left to wonder really what to expect from Mopar. There's a lot of rumors floating around out there, and guys like to talk a lot about, well, they're going to have the EV version of the Challenger. There's going to be the CUDA or whatever. And I keep going, look, guys, maybe not, but it's getting a little bit difficult to stay really on top of things in terms of, well, let me rephrase that. It's a little bit difficult to stay enthusiastic and stay on top of things in the industry when the industry is basically lacking right now. EVs seem to be the flavor of the month, but unfortunately the realities of EV ownership have hit EV owners rather hard. And those that have gotten rid of EVs have actually, in many cases, gone back to internal combustion engines. You got to remember that these EVs have been out for a while, and, well, again, the inconvenience factor really starts to kick in. And, well, when all that fresh mosquito acceleration parlor trick sideshow that those cars are really good at, when that part of the equation just becomes just part of the ownership experience, and the realities of the lack of convenience with those cars and other potential issues that can come up start to really creep in play, well, that's when those cars start hitting the used market. And unfortunately right now, even with way overinflated car prices, EVs are not quite garnering the resale value that a lot of folks would have hoped that they would. As a matter of fact, they're getting dinged pretty hard. And it's because a lot of people don't like buying other folks' used up appliances, which, if everybody's being truthful here, that's kind of what they're thinking about when they talk about EVs. So it doesn't really matter how good a product is or how hard the internet hypes it. If the reality of that particular product doesn't live up to the hype, or at least it leaves people wanting, well, again, that reality is going to hit home, and, well, here we are. So anyway, figured I would visit with you guys. Also, kind of have shirts in, kind of don't. Problem is, I put an order in for a limited run of shirts. The problem is they came out the wrong color. So I'm going to be doing a bit of a giveaway. There's a few that I've got left. Basically, I got 5 larges, 2 mediums, and 2 extra larges left in the kitty of a design that is absolutely a dead design too. This was kind of an initial run. Anyway, that was the initial run of the shirts, but it's red outline, and it's kind of a thicker outline than what I wanted. The newer shirts just read Mopar Chat Live across the chest, and it's outlined in orange. So anyway, hit me up on the Instagram, cover the cost of shipping, and I'll get one of these over to you guys. But aside from that, really not a whole lot else going on. A couple of plans for the Hellcat, but nothing major. Basically, we're just going to be testing some parts. So what parts are those going to be? Well, I'm going to try to start getting the car ready for this fall season. And Going to pull a little bit of weight out of the car, probably going to do a front bumper support. Not the Speed Logic setup, though. This is a different manufacturer, independent guy. He's making some stuff for some of the more hardcore racers out there. Looking to get my hands on one of his bumper supports, which are better, a little bit more structurally sound, and have all hard mounting points for anything that would need to mount to that support. Going to save about 16 or 18 pounds with that thing going on the front of the car. So I'll bring that to you guys as it comes in. Aside from that, cool things that are up and coming, trying my level best to get my hands on the first run of the Atturo AZ850 drag radials, 305, 35, 20. In talking to Atturo about those tires, basically they are set up, they're putting them together to run with the 275 40s that come on these cars. What does that mean? Well, what it means is that if you've got a Challenger or a Mustang or whatever, and you're running a 10.5-inch wide wheel, what it means is that you'll have a tire that actually fits that wheel properly and has the same height as a 275 40 or very close. So that's what I'm being told. Can't wait to put that claim to test. Hopefully, looking at the calendar over here, beginning of August, middle of August. Right now, supply chain problems have got a lot of folks kind of hemmed up. Labor issues as well are causing problems along with the supply chain issues. So when they come out, I'll be able to get my hands on them, but I've been talking to them quite a bit. Can't wait to get you those results. And I am a huge fan of the Atturo tire. The reason why I'm such a fan of them is because back in the day, the AZ850 was the tire you would throw on anything if you wanted something just to be able to roast off the back of the car that would manage to put up with some extremely high speeds without any real issues. So that's why I'm looking at those tires pretty seriously. Can't wait to try them out. Really hoping that they look the part because, to be honest with you guys, I just want these Nittos off the back of my car. But let me check in with you guys real quick. Donald Powers is first in. He goes, what? First by accident. Hello, what's up, Donald? Joe's in saying, Mopar fam, got the hang loose. Chuck Rice is in. Frederick's saying, what's cooking, B? What's up, man? David Barlow is in. Eric's saying, good evening, Professor B. Michael Corleone, good evening, Professor. Everybody got that flex on. I like it. Donald Powers saying, well, it will be easy to turn up the boost. Yep, it will be. And that's the thing. One of the deal we're talking about that inline six with the twin turbos. One of the things with that car that's going to make, or that engine, I should say, is whatever car it's in immediately makes it a contender. 3 liters, twin turbos. It is a recipe for making big power. And listen, I know a lot of guys out there are upset about the V8 going away. If we can get the kind of power and the durability out of a 3-liter inline 6 with a big honking single turbo hanging off of it or twin sequentials or whatever, I'll take the power however I can get it. So we'll see how that all ends up, though. David Castillo's in saying, sub B, proud owner here of a 2021 Challenger 392 or Charger. I'm sorry, 392. Don't want to get those two mixed up. Appreciate the knowledge from you week in and week out. You're the man. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Chuck saying he saw a Demon with 83 miles listed for 250 grand. Now I want you to think about that for a minute. That who is the player at $250,000 on that car? I'm afraid. See, here's the problem. So when the Demon came out, it was super cool. And the problem with the Demon is that you now have the red eye, walked in lockstep with the Demon. You also have the super stock. And I don't know that there's anything crazy special enough about the Demon over a super stock that would warrant double the price right now. And I don't know anything about the super stock that makes it all in a way special that would warrant it being half again more or almost half again more than a red eye. So I don't know, maybe I'm missing out on something there. Andy's checking in. Slash is in. What's up, buddy? Trying to read this name here. Get my glasses of reading on because y'all know I can't see. Ardell's in, Dan's in. Dan's saying the only downside to the 6 is the exhaust note. Yeah, I'll tell you something that some 6-cylinder exhaust notes sound really good to me. Others sound terrible. Usually a V6 sounds pretty awful, but I don't know. The inlines can sound pretty good, although I did hear an M4 today that sounded like it was a wind-up toy. Chuck saying ridiculous markups on top Challenger trim, super stocks listing for $120. Yeah, it's just way too expensive. I mean, it doesn't make any sense at $120,000. If you're buying something for it to just be fast, $120 puts you in some shark-infested waters. And I just don't know how, if they're able to pull that kind of money and there's people that are willing to spend it, look, far be it from me to call somebody crazy for spending crazy money on a car. So there's at least one seat for every ass out there, it seems like, and it usually means that somebody's willing to spend some big money on something that they want. So I know for a lot of folks, they got those cars a lot cheaper than that. So, and the guys that are spending that kind of money, they know that. So I don't know what kind of, what's the bet financially on that car? Anyway, kind of a strange thing when it comes to the values of some of these cars right now. Just blows my mind. But anyway, looking forward to whatever platform ends up using that inline 6. I'm looking forward to what Direct Connection is going to be able to throw out there at us. I've been told Direct Connection is going to have not only 3, but 4 and 5 layers to their upgrades for the boosted categories. Each category may have more or less than when it comes to the actual number of levels, but the reality is that it's a lot easier. And it is, guys, let me tell you something. When it's already boosted, you're talking low-hanging fruit, going out there and pulling more power out of something, especially if it's turbo, because y'all know I always say turbo is the cheat code. Chuck saying 50 to 60 large is his budget. Yeah, I mean, that's really the honest to goodness sweet spot for, picking up power, a powerful car nowadays, that scat pack, level, saying poor man muscle car owner here. No, man, listen, you're not poor if you can shell out that kind of cash, although it seems like that kind of dollar number gets you less and less these days, isn't it? But what's funny? Okay, let's talk about that $50,000 to $60,000 price range. So basically, if you're in the $50,000 to $60,000, what do you pick? Do you go naturally aspirated scatty? If it's me, I go shaker scatty if it's going to be a garage car, and go that route with a 392 and just have fun with it? Or do you go with a used Hellcat? There's some other things that are out there, though. You've got cars like, I don't know, the Supra that I've just been tugging at my heartstrings now for quite some time. But you also have the new Z. And I'm kind of curious to see what that Z does on a good tire in good weather, because I have a feeling it's going to be a little bit nasty. And that's what I'm hoping for. And it's funny because, we're talking about Mopar stuff, Mustangs and Camaros. It's funny how there's so much buzz about the 400Z, and especially given the fact that it will have a direct line of sight competitor in the Supra. I think that it's pretty awesome that car is coming to light right after the Supra was released, which, and for a lot of guys, reintroduced them to that 6-cylinder turbo, $50,000-ish price point hot rod that you could get in and really have a lot of fun with. Well, the Z is a V6 twin turbo and is making a considerable amount of power. Let's just see where this thing ends up. But I can tell you that a lot of guys that are going to be gravitating towards those cars are going to be current Mustang owners. And Mopar guys, typically, once you get one of these big Mopars, you stick with it, unless you're just really dying for something completely different. Usually the Mopar is where you end up, not where you start out. And with the I don't know. With the Mustang, it's a little bit different, a little bit buying demographic there. You're going to be spending about the same money. What would you spend your money on? I'd like to know your opinion on that, because for me, the Mustang is cool, but if you've got a budget of $50,000, is the Mustang, and I mean, we're talking, you're buying a new-ish car, $45,000, $55,000 range. It's going to get you the same car either way, whether it's a Supra or the Mustang or the Z for that matter, given enough time. Do you bypass the Mustang to get the newer Z or the Supra? And again, with the understanding that they're about the same sticker price. One of the things that I found that was kind of interesting was that you'll hear an argument that, well, the Mustang is you can get a Mustang and do this, that, and this to it. You realize that there's a lot of guys that don't want to do this, that, and this to it, because then you're fixing this, that, and this. There's a lot of breakage. And it's funny too that, you know, with any modified car, you're running the risk of breaking stuff. But I mean, damn, with the Mustang, I've seen a lot of people that just haven't been happy with the final result. But taking mods out of it, let's say you're just going to leave it stock, maybe do some exhaust mods, but that's about it. Maybe a tune on 93 octane. If you do the same to either the 350, or I should say the 400Z, or just the Z is what they're calling it, or the Supra, you're looking at some considerable power gains there. Hold, please. Anyway, you're looking at some considerable power gains there. And if your all-in budget is 50 grand, you get a smoking deal on a Supra or a 400Z, it's going to make it really difficult for me to look at the Mustang the same. To me, what it looks like is that you're losing a Camaro and you're getting this two-headed dragon from Toyota, BMW, and Nissan. So for me, in this respect, I'm pretty much waiting to see what that little Z ends up acting like. Put that thing on a tire, looks like it's going to be pretty nasty. But let me check in with you guys. Oh, hang on a second. Dan saying, any new insight on direct connection 392 parts? Yeah. So Dan, the only inside information that I have on direct connection 392 specific parts is that you won't be getting anything from direct connection. Unfortunately, even though they may have some potential tune files out there, it doesn't look like there's going to be much in the term of actually making any real power with those cars. In terms of like a heads cam or a revised intake manifold, anything of that like, I'm being told that's not in the works. As a matter of fact, the direct connection program in general is doing all that it can to get all of its boosted stuff through EPA testing, to get all of its EOs, which are called executive orders, or short for executive order, to get all of their executive orders, which is to say emissions compliance, sorted first, and then they will potentially look into the NA stuff then. But you got to remember that with the new inline six twin turbo engines, and I say engines because there's basically two formats to it, that's going to be the next thing that direct connection will more than likely be looking at. And because that engine is going to be available in large SUVs and trucks first, and it's going to be available in that configuration not only first, but for a while before it's going to be in any car application, you can bet that you're going to see a lot of direct connection resources directed towards those engines, because they're so much easier to extract large percentages of power out of those engines as opposed to an NA. So there's your reasoning behind it, but it doesn't make the news any easier to palate. The fact of the matter is, NA stuff is way too tough to get power out of, and these guys aren't going to put the resources into even trying. Even with a cam and a revised intake, you're looking to maybe go from 485 to at best 585 and still be somewhat emissions compatible. Can they do it? Maybe, but it's going to require long tube headers, and it's going to require a lot of things that may or may not pass. So with that, you're going to have to look at the aftermarket, unfortunately. Let's see. Chuck saying supers are quick. Yeah, they are quick. They're eerily quick, as a matter of fact. Himmy Dad saying, evening, everybody. Good evening, Himmy Dad. Let's see. Chuck saying M5s are 130 grand. Just not his thing. Yeah, they're not mine either. Ardell saying it's crazy times. Cars with power are out of sight. I priced a new Mustang GT500, $122,000. I picked up a 22 Chally Cat, much cheaper and more in it. Yeah. So, you know what's funny about that GT500? There's actually a video on Houston Raceway Park's Instagram, of all things, floating around with me beating a GT500 with my car, and that GT500 was on ET Street. He was on ET Street R's, as a matter of fact. Or was he on Nitto's? Either way, not Nitto's, Hoosiers. Either way, he didn't win that race. And the most impressive thing about the car are the brakes, because when he figured out that he couldn't get around me on the big end, and he wasn't going to run a quicker ET than me either. In fact, I not only out ET'd him, I think I also matched him or almost matched him in mile an hour. The guy stands on the brakes and actually makes the first cutoff. Never saw that car at the track again. And what's weird is that I've never, at least not at the drag strip, I've never shut somebody down that badly before. So, it's just kind of funny. A little stock boost Hellcat getting out there doing work. But Dan saying, Mopar for me, I want a big truck. Dodges are nice to drive. They can't handle much weight, though, very well with that rear suspension they have. Not the 1500s anyway. Carl saying, I have a 2019 Scat Shaker manual. On a previous Mopar Chat Live, I asked you about throttle hang. Is there any tuning hardware, software to get rid of it? Let me think about that for a minute. I'd have to look into it because I've never actually tried to tune that throttle hang out of it, but I know that you can. I'd have to, as a matter of fact, let me look up something real quick. I'm actually in HP Tuners right now. Let me see something here. We're going to go to, I don't think you can see what I'm looking at, unfortunately. Airflow, electronic throttle, open threshold, ramp rates. Let's see. I'd have to look into that because I don't know that there is anything that I could do that would make that go away and make it act more like a cabled throttle. I'm actually looking in one of the tunes right now. Definitely would have something to do with the small and large range settings. I'd have to look at the tune and do a compare file on it, but it would have to do with the small and large range settings, I believe. It's based around mass airflow for both. It might have something to do with the ramp rate as well. I'd have to play with one and find out. Chick Bay Sam, I just watched an inline six from a Trailblazer with a turbo, run a 961 in a Fairmont station wagon. It didn't sound that bad. I remember watching the Buick Grand Nationals in the late 80s. It wasn't just the Grand Nationals. I mean, they were awesome, but you had guys hot rodding the Typhoon. You had guys hot rodding the Cyclone. For fans of that era, those are a couple of S10, one S10 truck, one S10 Blazer with that turbo 4.3 liter V6. But yeah, no, they run really good. And that's, the Ameribera. A lot of guys are working on making that the Trailblazer inline 6 into something that you can actually build up in hot rod. EPA's in saying, can you recommend a throttle body for an NA Scat Pack 426 stroker with a ported 6.4 intake manifold, or is a stock sufficient enough? Lastly, is a tune revision necessary? Yeah, tune revision 100% necessary if you've made the move from a 6.4 to a 426. As far as throttle bodies, here's the thing. On a stock 6.4 liter manifold, car manifold primarily, I would challenge anybody to convince me that anything larger than 85 millimeter, and that's if the manifold was ported to 85 millimeter, would actually gain you much. But you can't really get anything bigger than that. I know that there are guys, there's an adapter to where you can run a Hellcat throttle body on that intake manifold. It works. You definitely have to have a tune for that because you have to let the computer know what kind of airflow you're dealing with. When that thing opens up and cracks open. But the reality is that the way that intake manifold kind of the throat kind of narrows, it comes down and then wraps around. It's kind of hard. It just doesn't really flow all that great, and the opening isn't all that great, and you can't really open it up enough to take advantage of a larger throttle body, because what I've run into with that manifold can be some potential thin casting issues. So when I port those manifolds, I've got to be real careful. In fact, now if I do any porting whatsoever to them, after I port them, I backfill them with epoxy. And the reason for that is, well, to be honest with you, there's no controlling how thin that actual plastic is. And so what you do is you backfill the bottom part with epoxy because you're just reshaping so much of that inlet to try to open it up so it can grab more air, as opposed to having this kind of goofy turn and everything else that it does. And, I've been able to get away with quite a bit with those manifolds, but lately I've had some issues with some manifolds just being really thin. And I'd even gone so far at one point as say, look, I am done porting these manifolds. You don't want to end up running into a whole bunch of issues, and you don't want to short a customer a good port job on the throat of that manifold because you're worried about, punching through the manifold, trying to get the thing to actually flow. So anyway, just this kind of the way it works with the 6.4 stuff. But yes, you would absolutely need a tune revision. Let's see. Oh, Chuck's saying telling Carl, get the pedal commander. That is the other thing that you can do. Saying it works great on his 345 shaker 6-speed. I do know of a lot of guys with pedal commander, pedal box, all of those types of products. I've recommended them a lot. And the reason why I recommend them so much, quite honestly, is because with other cars that I've installed them on, to me, it seems like that should be something you can control from your Uconnect. Like you should be able to control the throttle sensitivity individually from any other parameter or all other parameters, and because you could. So for me, that type of a pedal commander or a pedal box, it's kind of neat because you can chill the car out a little bit or make it more aggressive to fit, the mood that you're in. So I love those things. But Chuck said he likes them in that aspect for his car. So give that a shot too. And plus it won't void your warranty. Slash is saying, to me, wife, 3 kiddos means no Supra, no Z, no Mustang, no room, but the Charger can fit everybody at the same time. And yeah, there is not another car that's going to be able to do that. It cannot claim that attribute and do it at the same price for sure. Ain't you saying a car with a factory turbo is the way to go? The manufacturer isn't that important. That's true. A tune and an upgraded intercooler will typically yield increases. Yep. Dan saying, no, a big trunk, not a truck. Put your glasses back on. No shit, I probably should. But hey, a truck's got a really big trunk, so it's kind of the same thing, right? Gary's in saying, hello, everyone. Late to the show. Nah, you're good, brother. So getting back to, stuff that I'm working on for my stuff, getting ready for this fall. First thing I'm looking at is that lightweight bumper support. Again, it's not going to be the one from Speed Logics. This is a completely different deal. And I'll be doing the same type of video that I did for the sway bar. I'll be doing the same thing with this support. I'll weigh in the factory stuff and let you know what I think about it. Really, for me, the more I got to thinking about it, I do want to try to whittle this thing down into like a 1003, 1005, something like that. Still doing it all on pump gas, though, and that's the big deal. And by the way, when I say I'm doing this on pump gas, that means no race gas mix, no oxygenated mix, none of that. So I'm not trying to get away with anything. I'm just trying to see how far I can take the factory components, or at least take parts bin components, seeing how far I can take those. And, well, am I cheating a little bit with the bumper support? It's sort of. The thing is, it's kind of like the front sway bar, though. There are guys, and believe me, I'm kind of like this with this, just like you'd be, but there's guys that run no bumper support whatsoever on their cars. And anything that would have attached to the bumper support is basically just kind of zip tied to the core support and back of that thing. So, hey, at least I'm running some kind of a support up there, as opposed to just removing parts completely. It's one of the reasons why I looked into putting that other sway bar in my car, to save a little bit of weight, but yet still have the safety. With this, the way I started looking at it with that bumper support, if something hits that car hard enough to bend the bumper support, it's going to push it into that core support anyway. It's going to tear up a lot of parts. That bumper support and anything behind it's going to be the least of my problems at that point. So that's the reason why I'm going with this. Plus, it's a lot more of a robust bit of kit than what that Speed Logics unit is. So there's that. I've been playing around with the tune a little bit with the car too. And guys, I just don't think I can drag any more out of it with the tune that's in it. I'm not going to put any more timing into the car because from what I've seen with the fuel that I've run, I'm pretty much at the limit of what 93 octane can manage, which is to say, and y'all are going to love this part of it, which is to say that stock timing values are basically what you're going to want to run. There are a lot of other things that you're going to have to adjust to get the car to really get down the track, but leaving the stock timing values in it won't hurt performance whatsoever. And I'm trying to think here. There's actually where I have interpolated that field, it is actually blended more or less a couple of years. There's changes in operating systems, and some have more timing than others in certain areas. Basically, it's like having all the most timing from all the stock tunes in a tune. So there's my tune in a nutshell. I'm not going to give away my transmission tune though. But those are the things that I'm going to be looking at for this fall for my car. Again, I'm running out of ideas, spaces to remove weight. I'm not going to make the car unstreetable. I'll still drive the car a lot on the street. Any chance I get to drive the car, I do drive it because it's a lot of fun to drive. And so what I'll be looking at will be things that will help it get down the track at the same power level, just quicker. And then, of course, I really do want to get my hands on the new AZ850 Atturo drag radial, which if I could get a set right now today, I would, because I'm just a big fan of the Atturo tires. They have been, I'll put it like this. The Atturos on my car have been along for the ride for data testing since the SRT, since Shalandra. So that'll tell you how long I've been playing with those guys. Lionel's checking in, saying, what up, B? Oh, wait. Let me get my dang glasses on. My glasses of reading. These things are dirty, too. I don't know which one's better. Oh, Lionel's saying he's got a 2016 Scat 6er planning on going with full bolt-ons. What kind of power do you think I'll pick up with a full bolt-on with an E85 tune? Also, what is the most aggressive cam that you can think of for it? Well, Lionel, I've put together a lot of cams for guys, for Hemis, and your best bet, full bolt-on. See, here's the thing. The problem with quoting you power numbers is it depends on what dyno you've got the car on. If you're on a real stingy Mustang dyno, like what I'm used to working with, you're not going to pull much power out of the car, at least not as much as you think. If you're on a real generous dyno jet, it's going to look like you just strapped 100 shot of nitrous to the car. So let me break it down for you like this. Full bolt-on, long tubes, good tune, ported intake, larger throttle body, Hellcat airbox, K&N filter, or a green filter, or a Hellcat filter, whatever way you want to go there. All of that stuff installed on the car. And let's say that the car is on a Mustang dyno. So you almost have to play percentages here. So let's say stock the car puts down 400 horsepower to the rear wheels, which is pretty normal for a 392. You might see some at 410. You might see some at 390. We're just going to go with 400. Makes the conversation work a little bit better. Long tubes won't pick up any horsepower at all. In fact, you could lose 2 or 3 horsepower, believe it or not, with long tubes, but you'll pick up torque down low and you'll pick up a lot of partial throttle power. Makes the car a little bit more drivable, believe it or not. So that's worth it to me. I used to tell guys, like, don't put long tubes on the car because everybody looks at power numbers and they're not concerned with the fact that it's everything under the curve and under wide open throttle that you're really looking to get out of those long tubes. I wouldn't have a 6.4 without long tubes now at this point with high flow cats. Anyway, going with that's your experience with long tubes. Do it, but just don't expect anything. Anyway, power out of that combination, 415-ish, maybe 420, but it's going to be tough on E85. You're just not going to pick up a lot. These engines are just not that sensitive to timing the way that you would hope anyway. In fact, I had one car, in fact, it was Quick Bricks Charger that had one of my small cams in it, my personal ported throttle body, which did have to get backfilled. That sucker was opened up. Larger ported intake manifold, fast man throttle body, the works. That's the car that would go 155, 60 footed like a Hellcat. And that car on E85 with the cam on that Mustang dyno put down 475, 480 horse to the rear wheels. On a dyno jet, it put down right at 500. And that car, the way that it acted is that with that small cam, it just acted like it had more cubic inches. It didn't matter where you were in the throttle. Instead of being a 392, it felt about like what you'd expect, horsepower per cubic inch out of a 426. It just really did react well, like what you would hope the factory would give you. The small cam, no lope, no nothing. You wouldn't even know the car's got a cam unless you lined up against it and got torched by it. But also to give you an idea, it would walk away from Mustangs on the highway, which if you know how a stock car gets dealt with by a Mustang on the highway, you'll know just how much faster that car really was. And that's in a 4,600 pound car. That car went 1120s at full weight with a drag pack. So hopefully that breaks it all down for you. What can you expect to get? It's tough. Now, what's the largest cam? See, here's the problem with largest cam for a Gen 3 Hemi. Large cams in a Gen 3 Hemi bring a host of problems, not the least of which are drivability issues, tunability, more to the point. And so you have to be working with somebody that can tune the combination that you've got. It's where a lot of guys go wrong. It's where a lot of Hemi builds go south. So the tuner just is not really capable or isn't used to tuning, I should say, shouldn't say capable, just not used to tuning that combination. So if you were to take a look at some of the larger cams that I put together, the absolute largest is going to be a cam called the Mammoth grind that I did for Dr. Differential and Speed. And that one, if I'm not mistaken, well, I don't have to be anything, I can tell you. That one, without giving away the actual specs, I'm actually looking at the specs right now. Low 230s, high 230s range on this thing. But you'd have to check piston and valve clearance. That's really more for a larger displacement engine. It's rowdy. It's a real rowdy cam. You can also go with something that's a little bit more sedate. And again, it just depends on what you're thinking about when you're putting this cam in your car. Are you thinking about idle? Are you thinking about drivability? Are you thinking about top end? What are you really planning on doing with this thing? So anyway, about the biggest I would really want to go, honest to goodness, on the street to get you out of big issues with drivability would be probably 224 on the intake, probably 232 on the exhaust, somewhere right around in there. Only because you don't want to end up with an issue where you've got a drivability problem, which will take all the wind out of your sails. If you've got a car that just doesn't behave, you'll be thinking about that when you're beating on it. Lobe separation angle, that's going to determine your overlap, duration for duration. And two cams having the same duration, the tighter the lobe sep, the more overlap you're going to have. I would probably stick to somewhere around 113, 114. So a cam around in that range will get you where you need to be. But call Dr. Diff and Speed. They can get you sorted out with that. No problem. Let's see. Gary's asking about who am I getting it from? So I'm actually it's an independent guy out of California. He's not advertising anywhere. He's kind of doing this a little bit on the side. He's made some front bumper supports for some guys. I've seen him, and he's starting to get a little bit of momentum. So I want to try to support the guy. So more on that to come, but I don't want to get the guy inundated, but it's a newer guy, a little bit different design, and a little bit more in the bumper support. So, instead of saving, say, 20 pounds, you're saving 16, but you're getting a lot more structural rigidity out of the thing, is what it looks like to me. And I figure with that plus the sway bar, I'm saving 26, 27 pounds off the front of my car. And that's a good thing. So I'm going to probably stop there. That'll be the easiest thing for me to do, because I really don't think I can go any farther unless I go with a lighter weight brake package. And I'm just not going to do that either, unless I have to get new rotors for the car. And I'll go with Demon Performance Hellcat rotors and save about 10 pounds a side off of that. I think you end up saving like 20 pounds with those things, maybe 15 pounds when you go that route for those included too. So, and I was going through the list, and once this is done, I'll actually, without the rear seat coming out of it, I think I saved like 215 pounds. And that's just how I would be driving the car around normally, not including the drag pack. Chuck's asking, what's the difference between the Bilstein suspension compared to regular stock versions and the non-plus Challengers? The Bilstein has thicker, so you have what's known as a sport or a performance suspension package, which has a slightly larger set of sway bars and different valving in the struts. That's the main thing. Aside from that, it's not a whole lot, but springs are basically the same. I don't think it's got a different spring rate. In fact, I don't think you would have gotten a different spring rate unless you got into the dynamic package, but which would, AKA the SRT. The Hellcats do have a slightly, the Hellcats are a completely different story when it comes to the Challengers, but that is really the only differences that I'm aware of. Dan's asking 6-speed clutch delay valve, pitch or keep, punt that thing, get your screw, open it up, get your screw, screw it in there, and yank that sucker out. Yeah, I would not use that. I think that actually, for some people, helps them a little bit, but I think it hurts. I think it hurts more than it helps, to be honest. XD45 asking, sir, do you drink beer? Absolutely. So I used to brew my own beer, and just like anything that I get into, I really get into it. So when I was in college, I had a buddy of mine that got me into brewing beer, and his apartment. So where I went to school, this was off campus, but it was very close to the campus. It was an old ass apartment complex. Anyway, his apartment was nothing but a brewery. Basically, he set up the glass brewing vessels and everything, and basically had the little fart bubblers and everything. Anyway, he got me into it, and so yeah. Favorite over the counter beer depends on what I'm in the mood for. Shiner Blonde is probably on the top of that list. Coors, any type of Coors is river beer. Killian's Red is another one that's on the top of that list. And let's see, of course, Guinness. Everybody says Guinness, but Guinness is a good breakfast beer. It's really good with eggs and Tabasco sauce. And let's see, that's what you drink before class. And then what else? I'm trying to think. So I really don't consider that. Like, you wouldn't just sit back and pound Guinness, right? But anyway, I'm trying to think what else was out there. Killian's. But yeah, if I'm just throwing it back, it's going to be Shiner, or usually Shiner Blonde. Oh, Dan saying I already did, and man, was I glad I did. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because what happens, so for you guys that aren't aware, the 6-speed cars have this delay valve, and what it is, it's this small little reducer orifice in the clutch line. And what it's there to do is it's there to help to, it's kind of weird really, but it's there to help to slow the application of the clutch so that it makes the car a little bit easier to drive and it doesn't stall, so to speak. It's harder to stall the car with it if you just let the clutch go really quickly. The problem is that if it makes it slower to disengage, it also makes it slower to engage. And to me, it always screwed up the feel of that clutch. I always felt like something was wrong. And then I found out about that delay valve, and I'm going, oh my God, how do you fix that? How do you get out of it? So, Dan's asking about the alternative brake pads for the 6-piston setup suggestions. Power stops. What do I have? The 29, 26s. I think I have the 26s. Go all the way around though. Don't use the stock rears with the power stop fronts. Believe me when I tell you, the car is not going to brake right. It's going to feel a little bit imbalanced. And I know that there's guys that are going to say, I've done that to my car and it felt perfectly fine. I understand that, but mine didn't. So you can run the risk of that. But I prefer the power stop. Yeah, it's 26s all the way around. Bed them in, and I can tell you this: that car, those pads have woed my car from significant speeds really fast. They work really well. So that's the route that I would personally go. Haven't had any issues with them. And they've lasted a decent amount of time so far. I think I've got about 10 or 12,000 miles on the fronts, and I've recently done the rears. I had run the factory rears on the back of that car for a while, and again, it just never did feel right. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that, yes, I understand that the factory pads, or just understand this, the factory pads will have more initial bite. And so what it felt like was the car was kind of tail dragging a little bit when you go to hit the brakes. Now with the same pads all the way around, they're just right. So that's the route that I would go. Sovereign saying, speaking of braking, I just had to replace all my rotors because the braking lube dried up. I've never had that issue, causing brake calipers to stick. Weird. Interesting. Saying setting back 700. Damn. It might be a thing, man. Like I said, I've never run into that. That's the first I've heard of it. So sorry to hear that. That sucks. But I've had really good luck with those power stops. And like I say, if it ever comes down to needing new, and the other thing is the power stops a lot easier on the rotors. If you're running the 6-pot rotors with factory pads, yeah, it stops really, really well. But those pads are destroying those rotors. And if you feel the lip, you just kind of run your fingernail along the sides. And as you get to the end, you'll feel that thing kind of curl up. I've had cars when I was with Pikes, I've had cars at the shop where I'm trying to find something over here to kind of illustrate just how thick that lip was. It was so thick. I mean, you could feel it to the point of like, you couldn't believe like there was any material left on that rotor to stop the car. Yeah, that's one of the drawback, a couple of drawbacks of those factory pads. Sovereign saying, yeah, I'm not sure what the hell is up with this Lexus. Always seem to have issues with the brakes. A lot of the Japanese cars did. Dan saying it's $700 a copy. I don't want to wear rotors. On the other hand, the stock pads are dirty. Yeah. Listen, I wouldn't run stock pads on the Hellcats or Scat Packs or any of them for that matter. HU37 saying I have a Mustang with a 3400 stall torque converter and a 6RD trans. Do you know if adding a trans brake will reduce my 60-foot time? I can add one electronically, so the cost is only $400. It'll really only reduce your 60-foot time if you're not able to stall it to 3,400 RPM, or if stalling the thing at 3,400 RPM actually helps you. What I found with automatics is, for the most part, if you've got a 3,400 RPM stall and it's an honest to goodness 3,400 RPM stall, most guys will foot brake those and they'll hold it at about 1,500 RPM and then whack the throttle and flash the converter to 34 or 3,600 RPM. So one thing putting a trans brake on the car will do, if it doesn't improve your 60-foot, it may make that 60-foot more consistent, because you'll be able to set a trans brake, and then presumably you can set a trans brake rev limiter to where you can hang the thing at 3,200 RPM or whatever RPM you want to launch at, and then let the button go and away you go, the same way you would do with a manual transmission car. So in that respect, it can make it a bit more consistent, but I wouldn't necessarily bank on it giving you a better 60-foot if everything's working properly. Sovereign saying the lube dried up on the slider pins. Well, that shouldn't be that big of a deal, unless it, something else was damaged. Maybe Dad saying my power stops seem fine up in 3 digits. Yes, they are. Yeah, in a relatively recent trip to Mexico, Velocito, as a matter of fact, What? I can't even tell you. Anyway, I both had to slow down very rapidly and then accelerate very rapidly for an amount of time. I just wanted to make sure I was free and clear. Going to jail. Let's see. Siren saying, had the brakes redone and now had them use Raybestos lubricant. I guess the Permatex blue stuff dried up. May have. Oh, Lionel saying that he likes his 305 35 20 Mickey Thompson street comps for the Scat coming in soon. Was wondering if you had any rubbing issues with 305s. What do you think about 315s, or is that overkill? So, Lionel, that's a good question. So here's the thing. Not all 305s are 305s. And I know that sounds a little bit confusing, but every manufacturer will have kind of a range. And this could be 305. This could be 305. This could be 305. This could be 315. So depending on how the tire is actually sized, you can have 305s that are physically larger than some 315s. Give you a perfect example of that. With a set of 305 35 Mickey Thompson ET Street SS drag radials on the back of my car, those tires would not rub on my inner fender with the minor inner fender mods that I did. I've got a video out floating around in the how-to section where I actually show me moving the inner fender over a little bit and, re-drilling a hole and putting the little Christmas tree tab through it. That's not a big deal. But when I switched over to the Nitto Tri-5Rs, the problem that I ran into is that the 305 35 20, and again, I'm running a 10.5 inch wide wheel. The 305 35 20 is actually a little bit wider, and so it bows out from the wheel a little bit. It's a good tire, but it's also a little bit on the wide side, which can create some rubbing issues. And if you have, more weight in your trunk, the car is sitting down a little bit more, can potentially cause more rubbing issues there for you. So I recommend looking at the specs of the tire. Now, here's the reality of this. If you're running Mickey Thompson ET Street SSs, you're good. If you're running basically anything from Mickey Thompson, chances are you're going to be okay. I do know that the Tri-5Rs are running a little bit large. I am waiting on the Aturos to drop because as soon as I can get my hands on the AZ850DR, which is the drag radial version of my beloved Aturo AZ850s, I am waiting on getting those in because I can't wait to get them on the car, because I've run Aturos I regularly run those things up to obnoxious speeds, and they are not only, they handle the speed well, they have very good lateral grip, but the other thing is that they, besides wearing like iron, they have, at least the ones that I've had, they balanced really well. They didn't take a whole lot of weight to balance out. So that's another good thing about them. But yeah, the tire manufacturers, some are bigger, some are smaller, even when they're the same size. Falcon tire, as a matter of fact, used to be notorious for being a little bit big for the wide, I should say. When I say big, I mean wide for the size of tire. Also, the Mickey Thompson tires have a tendency to be a little bit taller so that they match the front tire a little bit better. We'll see, though. I don't know about the Aturos, but I've been told by a Toro that those tires are actually meant to be a combined set. So, and any of the 315s are going to be overkill. I can tell you that right now. If you've got a Charger where you can actually run an 11-inch wide wheel, then the 315 35 20 is the size that you want. Oh, clickbait's talking about the grease. Yeah, if the heat range isn't right, yeah, you have to use high temp product on those things. Dan's asking, have you ever run Cooper tires? If so, what are your opinions? Technically, I run Hoosier tires on the back of the Hellcat when I'm at the track, or Cooper, I should say, owns Hoosier. So Cooper also, Cooper is kind of a funny tire company because they are the parent company to a lot of different companies out there. But yeah, Cooper's a good tire. Haven't really ever had an issue with them, and would recommend them for any application. Honestly, they've always been good as far as I'm concerned. Never did run into an issue with them. But yeah, they actually own a lot of different tire manufacturers. Hercules, I think, is one of their brands. In fact, I know it is. Hercules, Hoosier, who they recently acquired. Who else? God, there's so many of them out there, but that'll give you an idea. They're good tires. Let's see. Sovereign's hanging out with chicks. Clay saying, good evening, Mason. How you doing? Doing well, man. Thank you. Clay saying, in my opinion, the Wrangler needs to have the 6.4 liter supercharger Hemi V8. So here's the funny thing. When I was with Pipes, we tuned a ton of engine swap Jeeps where you would have Hellcat swaps, LS swaps, 5.7 swaps, which is actually 5.7 is probably my favorite for the Jeep. 6.4, which is also really good. LS with superchargers. One of the scariest, like I think I may have, or I'm gonna blow up an engine moments happened. That's really not the right way to put it. One of the scariest, I can't believe this car hasn't blown up moments came with one of those engine swap Jeeps. So we would get these things in about once a month, once every 2 months. Be one of the Jeep guys. Could be a supercharged V6, but we're talking about this Maggie equipped, was it a 6 liter? I think it was a 6.0, either 6.0. Yeah, it was a 6.0. So it's a Maggie equipped 6.0. And the funny thing about it was it was running on meth. It had meth injection. And so how do I put this? So I went to do a data log on this thing because I was the guy that did all the preliminary data logs. I go to do a data log on this thing and go to wide open and it goes kind of pig rich. And I'm like, what in the hell is going on with this thing? And I noticed, actually, no, I was at high load, not yet wide open throttle. I noticed it was going rich. And I didn't realize it. Nobody had told me, and I didn't really think to ask, but there was a tank right behind my seat that was like a gas tank size tank that was nothing but water methanol. And what the people did that put this thing together was they put a tank on this thing that was kind of like a DEF tank, like what you think of today, size tank, to where all this guy had to do was put gas in it. And then when he went wide open, the meth would hit and it would be the octane. It would basically pick up the slack for octane. And that's what the thing was running on. Well, I didn't realize that. And when I drove the thing, it was going rich basically for no reason. So I came back to this thing's running rich as hell, only to find out that it was running on methanol more than anything else. And the problem with that is that we've had methanol kits fail on the dyno. We've had methanol kits not function properly out of the box. We've had all kinds of weird things happen when you start doing these aftermarket kits. Okay. And I was of the opinion that this thing probably had at least one cylinder that was not getting enough methanol, and it was practically about to melt itself down. And that's why I was going, I cannot believe this thing is doing, but I mean, it was running so rich that, and I got to think about it, was running so rich. It was like 10.1 to 1. It was almost in the nines. And it's like this thing is basically ensuring that every cylinder is at least 13.0, and with meth you get weird distribution. Anyway, long story short, it was kind of funky. So, sorry, I kind of got off on a tangent there. Gary, thank you very much. Saying don't forget to let us know when and how to get the t-shirts. Yes, so I've got 5 large, 2 medium, 2 extra large, and then 2 XXX on standby. But just hit me up on the Instagram, BA Mason 721, and get me your info there, and I can get those out to you, buddy. And Chickbait saying Goodyear owns Cooper, even better. Actually, does Goodyear own Cooper, or does actually Goodyear owns Mickey Thompson now? Which is kind of creepy. That's a recent acquisition. Oh, Clay's saying he's wondered why Chrysler and Ford did not go through with their plans on diesel engines in passenger cars in the 70s and 80s like GM did, because the diesel engines back then were horrible in that application. So GM used a car engine and basically used a high nickel 350 block to build their diesel engines. And they were low compression, naturally aspirated. They were just dogs of an engine, and really in a lot of cases didn't offer that much better fuel economy. And so, yeah, Mopar and Ford just didn't want to have any part of that. They did not see that being the future. And that was at a time when diesel technology was about, well, it wasn't that much further. Well, any of the technology back then for engines wasn't that much further away from just something you'd find in a tractor. Not that that's a bad thing. It's just kind of the reality behind it. But there just was, and besides, so the GM 6.2 liter diesel collectively put the United States back probably 30 to 40 years when it comes to public acceptance of diesel technology too. What sucks about that situation is that we could have had some really good diesel automotive applications. Sorry, I got a shoe that's freaking me out. We could have had some really good automotive application diesel engines if that 6.2 wouldn't have failed so spectacularly, or the 350 for that matter. Cyrus asking if I'm going to be going at Racer X's farewell on the 18th. Probably not. Mainly just because I'm kind of tied up that weekend. I didn't realize he was doing that until you had mentioned it to me, and doesn't look like I'll be able to make that, unfortunately. Oh, Clay's asking, I wonder also why there were no 4-cylinder 2-liter diesel options offered for the K car. And again, it's the exact same reason. By the time the K car had come out, public acceptance of diesels was going to be at an all-time low. That would have been somewhere around 1979, 1982-ish. And at that time, there would not have been anybody in their right mind in the United States, at least from what they were shown, that would have been looking to pick up anything that would have been diesel powered. The idea really would have been to try to almost force the issue with a turbocharged version. But the problem is that they hadn't quite gotten that far with it yet. And besides, gasoline turbos were all the rage back then. So there wasn't any real good reason to divert resources into that technology, that diesel technology, when, for example, the 2.2 liter architecture was so good, and putting a turbocharger on that meant you had anywhere between 135 and 150 horsepower at a time where most V8s were doing really good to make, well, 135 to 150 horsepower. So that's the reason why. And again, Gary, thank you very much, buddy. I appreciate the contribution, my friend. But yeah, check out Instagram. Just give me your info and I'll get you these. By the way, the shirts, guys, again, I got 5 large, 2 medium, 2 extra large, and it's this design, the MTL Mopar Chat Live. This was an original, kind of like a preliminary run that I did, and unfortunately the color is off. It's supposed to be orange and it's actually red, and it's, I don't know, it's a really good looking shirt. It's just, it's not the design that I wanted, and it's not I mean, it is, but it isn't. So anyway, you know how that goes. I mean, it's nobody's fault. It just kind of is what it is. Sovereign's saying this 18th. Yeah. And he's saying, it looks orange. You know, what's funny is, like, if you look at it, I'm telling you, this is the exact, what's funny, it's the exact same color as my car. But that's what they look like. So it's weird that it looks orange. These are all canvas. These are not Hanes or anything. This is the real soft stuff. That's kind of how I get down with the t-shirts. I don't ever do the U-line or any of the other cheap stuff. I always go with the canvas. And these are actually, if you guys own them, you'll know what I'm talking. Once you own one of these, you'll never own another one. But it's the Canvas Bella shirts. So they're awesome. Love them. But the other design that I've got coming, it just says Mopar Chat Live, and it just is Mopar Chat Live in the audio font right across the chest. Let's see. Let's see. Steven saying, you look youngest when you're clean shaven, but as long as you stick with Mopar, you'll never grow old. True that. Yeah, I don't know, man. I might do away with the face fuzz. It'll always grow back, believe me, and it grows fast too. That's a weird thing. Clay's saying, imagine if Chrysler offered a Dodge Aries K from the factory with a 2.2 liter 4-cylinder diesel engine in the 80s. Well, the thing is, I mean, if they would have, it would have just been a real agricultural style diesel. It wouldn't have been what you would see today. It's something that would be really, really good. You're just not going to see that. Oh, Sovereign saying, just a heads up, Racer X is having a farewell car meet in Irvine. If anybody can make it, got the info up there. That's right. He's heading out to Florida, as a matter of fact. Oh, Dan's saying, yeah, the Toyota's got a really good diesel. Nice. Oh, Sovereign say maybe it just looks washed out to me and it comes across as orange. You know, what's funny is that I think what happened is that this was supposed to be a darker shade of orange. And like normally I like the lighter shade, and like in the other ones with that funky font that that company's out of business now, unfortunately. And apparently they took the font with them. But yeah, this color it's orange on the custom ink site, but man, I'm looking at it right now, and it doesn't matter what kind of light you're looking at it in. It's definitely red. So hopefully there's another orange. I think it's called Teams Orange is the name of it that they call it. And I'm hoping that's a more true orange than this, which is red. But it is what it is. I mean, I'm not mad about it. The face fuzz suits you. Thank you. Haven't tried Vistaprint yet. No. But I will give them a shot. Custom Ink's doing really good by me. So, I mean, I definitely want to give them the opportunity to come through. And like I say, they did good by me. So, I'm cool with that. But yeah, man, I don't know. I kind of do want to shave it a little bit. It is a little bit gray. That's the only problem. But oh, Clay saying his mom had a Delta 88 with a 350 diesel. That's a kind of a rare. There was a lot of. I know that back then, a lot of guys that bought those cars were traveling salesmen. A lot of those guys bought them thinking they were going to get way better fuel economy with them, but they had issues with overheating. What was the other one? There was another issue. It wasn't oiling or anything like that. Anyway, they had some weird issues with those cars initially, and that soured a lot of people off of them. Oh, Sovereign saying he's uploaded his logos and made his own. Very cool. I will definitely check them out. And I have heard of them too, so pretty sure it'll work out pretty good. But Clay saying vapor lock. Kind of hard to vapor lock a diesel. You'd have to be running obnoxiously low. Well, you know what? I say it'd be hard to do, but then again, it's also easy to do because mechanical fuel injection. It may have had something to do with the mechanical fuel injection on it, but I do know that there was, so it could technically have been vapor lock. I do know that they had overheating issues and just general failure issues. Aside from the fact that the car was just so slow. And the main thing is that when you look at like the Mercedes 300D from roughly the same era, there are those things running around with 2 million miles on them. And, all they've had replaced on them is like an alternator or something like that. So, Sovereign saying he sent me an IG for the thing. Okay, cool. Awesome. He's saying he shaved today and he wants his full beard back. That's awesome. Regretted it immediately. Lionel's asking, is there any benefit of E85 flex fuel over 93 octane? I'm in California, so let me just say 91, but yeah. What's funny, man, is I miss living in California every day. And I'm glad I don't live in California anymore every day too. So benefits of E85 over gasoline. If you have enough compression to take advantage of the octane in E85, it's worth having. The problem is that you have to have, realistically, to take advantage of the E85, you need to be at about 12.5 to 1 compression ratio. That's Mustang territory. And at that point, you can run more timing to achieve MBT, which would be maximum brake torque. That's just a fart smelling way to say that you can actually run the amount of timing that the engine wants to run, as opposed to having to run a little bit less timing because of the knock threshold of 91 or 93 octane. That's all that means. With the Mopars, you don't really get there. And I have done, so this is a fun thing. It's a fun experiment that I did. It was on Quick Bricks Charger with my cam in it. Also did this stock because we did E85 in his car when it still had the stock cam, but full bolt-on E85 car. So I've got a little bit of experience with this. I was on the dyno one night with his car, and I started the car off at what would be an indicated 16 degrees of timing at a certain spot. It's actually when I say, if I give you a number in terms of timing, that's just the max number of timing. This is an interpolated chart that goes along with this, but I'm going to try to keep this like easily digestible. So I started out 16 degrees of timing, 85, and I knew it was good 85. Went to 17, went to 18, went to 19. When I got to 19 on E85 with the stock cam, I was already not seeing any real gain anymore. And the problem is that I wasn't anywhere past where I already was in terms of actual timing. And most tunes for a 91, 93 octane 392 are going to be somewhere around 17 to 18 degrees of timing, 18 being kind of the high point. Like you probably wouldn't even make it to 18 necessarily on 91, depending on the 91 you're playing with. But I went to 19, went to 20, went to 21, went to 22. I never could get that car to pick up power because I was able to throw more timing at it or adjust fuel in any direction. So giving just to kind of keep you in the car with me, so to speak, kind of take you on the journey along with me. I did this timing sweep at a specific air fuel ratio. And so I drug the timing back. I think I ended up at like 23 degrees of timing. The car was just, it didn't care. It was non-responsive at this point. And crap. Okay. So drug the timing back to, I think it was 19 degrees or 18 degrees, 18 and a half, 19 degrees. I think it was 18 and a half. And started playing with fueling. And I was at the normal, what would like a, just lambda corrected, basically like 1235, 1240 AFR, which is kind of where these cars are happy, and was playing with leaner, richer, went to 1277, went to 1292, went down to 120. Could not get the car to do anything. The car would, no matter what I threw at the car, it didn't matter. So even at 11 or close to 11, it's called 11-to-1 compression ratio with the 392. It still doesn't really have enough compression ratio to make a huge difference in terms of power. Up top, down low, it's another story. And I can give you my theory behind this, but down low, it did pick up torque. And I think it picked up somewhere around 10 foot-pounds of torque for about 1,500 to 2,000 RPM. And then that number just kind of came down. The thought on that for me was because I wasn't able to take advantage of timing because there wasn't enough compression ratio. As a matter of fact, I was actually in a position with that car with the 85 where I was overtiming it and power dropped. But because there wasn't enough compression ratio, I couldn't throw any more timing at it and really collect any more power the way that you can with something that's at like 12.5-to-1. So, is there power in there? Yeah, there is, but it's all basically you're picking up torque down low. But getting to the reason why, and one of the reasons why I figured this was going to be the case and why it kind of is with NA applications, is that you have to run 30% more fuel to equate the same amount of energy that's in gasoline. E85 just doesn't have that amount of energy, but it's got a lot of knock resistance. You just have to run a lot more fuel. Well, the problem is that the more air you're pumping, the more fuel you need. And at that point, you're running fuel to the point where you're displacing air in favor of the actual fuel itself. And so you've got the fuel to burn. You just can't burn it because there's not enough air there. You have less oxygen molecules, even when you take into account the fact that E85 is an oxygenated fuel, so to speak. So that's my theory. That's what seems to work. At least it plays out on the NA stuff. Boosted's a completely different story because you just keep cramming air in there. Whereas NA, you're drawing the air in. It's completely different. So does it pick up power? It kind of does, primarily in torque. The other thing I don't like necessarily about E85 is the fact that, well, to be honest with you, it's corrosive as hell, and it just can tear some stuff up pretty badly. So just know that going into it. Sorry, saying, honestly, I hate shaving. I know what you mean. Oh, Clay wants to do a gas to diesel conversion. You know, it's funny. for a while, there was a lot of guys doing gas to diesel conversions with some of the modern diesel engines. So it might be a pretty cool project. Dan's asking, what is reasonably possible to gain out of a 392 without mechanical changes? In other words, tune only. 15 to 20 horsepower. And I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but let me put it to you like this. 15 to 20 horsepower over the course of the entire power band is fairly significant. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot when you're not the one tuned running a guy that is tuned. So, if you just stick with 15 horsepower, it doesn't sound like a lot, but the cool thing about the tune is that it's more important to get your transmission tuned than your engine tuned. When I was dealing with all of the NA stuff, when I was really kind of gunning down a lot of folks with my SRT, I ended up running low 11s with that car, full weight on 20s. And a lot of people kind of forget that. And I was doing that with stock manifolds, and I was doing that with all stock parts. And at that point, the car did not have a rear seat delete. I don't think it did. Anyway, I was doing that on 20s. That's going back a few years. It's a fun car. Kind of miss it. Eric's saying, I was a little late to the party. Came in the orange conversation. Was there an answer on the meet and greet at Clay Cooley? I will not be able to make it, unfortunately. Which kind of sucks. Sovereign saying 85, it's all fun and games until the corn bites back. So whatever gains you get out of E85, guys, I can tell you this. Okay, so the ugly little thing about E85 is that you don't always get E85. Usually you get less than 85% ethanol. A lot of that has to do with the time of year. The colder it is, the less ethanol is going to be in the fuel, because ethanol is awful about cold starts. But here's the thing. Ethanol attracts water. The term for it is called hydrophilic, as opposed to hydrophobic, I mean it would repel water, which is what gasoline does. The fact is that alcohol will mix perfectly with water. Your favorite mixed drink would agree with that statement. So the point that I'm getting to is, if you let it sit for too long, it will get hydrated. And when it becomes hydrated, it's even worse. You got there and beat on your car, and what you're injecting isn't fuel, and what fuel, or at least it's not fuel like what you would think. I have experienced either firsthand or have been a party to 4 different times with 3 different cars, 4 different scenarios, or 4 different instances, I should say, where bad tank of E85 created a lot of problems. 2 times were with that same Charger I was telling you about. Once, or the other 2 times, were with cars on the dyno. And one of those situations, I thought that I had blown a car up on the dyno. It's the first time. Well, I take it back. It's the second time I thought that I blew a car up on the dyno. The first time was because the cylinder number 8 misfire counter flaked out. It's a Hellcat, and they do that. But I thought I popped a ringland. The second one, and that happens. I mean, welcome to dyno world. You cannot get mad if your shit pops on a dyno. It's just hot rod line. But the second time that it happened on the second time that it happened on the dyno was weird. No, I'm sorry. The first time that this happened it was weird is because that car, I picked up on the fact that it wasn't E85 in the tank. When I was in the back, I had centered the car on the dyno. I went back to ratchet the car down on the dyno, and I noticed that the exhaust didn't smell like E85. E85 is a very distinct smell. It smelled like gasoline. And that's the one that I caught. No, that was the second one is the one that I caught because I smelled it. The first one is the one that I made the hit, and it all hell. It was just bad. So I don't even want to talk. Anyway, so real bad instance on the first one. There was another car though, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. There was another car even before that wasn't me running the dyno, and I'm flat positive that car had a bad tank of E85 in it also. So for everybody that's running E85 out there, you just have to remember there's kind of some protocols that you have to take with it. You got to be careful with it because it is corrosive, and you've got to understand that, man, you got to test it. Every once in a while, you get a bad tank of E85, and when that corn bites back, bro, it ain't pretty. So, let's see. Oh, Stuart's saying he took the cat to the drag strip the other night. I used sport mode instead of track, and I actually ran quicker. I've never had good luck with track mode. Dan saying 15 is good. What about in manual transmission application? What? Oh, it's same. Same. Talking about the power gain is the exact same. Manual versus automatic for those cars. It's not like the old school where the automatic was like significantly less. If I were to show you two dyno charts, one manual, one automatic, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the two. Once that converter locks up, there's literally no difference to the rear wheels. Boost is saying this car went from 112 in the 8th to almost 114 running E80 with the same boost. I would see that for sure. Boost is also saying always test your 85 before you pump it in the car. That's a big part of that. Eric's saying I have about a 3-hour drive to get there, and I'm looking forward with excitement and meeting some new enthusiasts. Very cool. Yeah, like I say, unfortunately, I am tied up that weekend, or I'd be out there with you guys. Clay's asking if I've thought about offering up memberships to the channel. Not really. This channel is really more of it's basically just a white noise generator for a lot of guys that will have this channel on in the background. And so I don't want anybody to think that they're getting different content outside of this. What I had done and what I may still do, and if I end up doing this, I'll do an announcement, but the Patreon page, which doesn't really exist, but I do have. The funny thing about it is that page was only going to be there to collect blooper videos. And there was a ton of blooper videos, first run videos, and all of that ended up getting lost. And that kind of sucked. So the Patreon was going to be, look, if y'all want to support the channel outside of anything else, I really do appreciate it. I don't want you to feel obligated to. Gary, thank you speaking of supporting the channel, Gary, thank you very much. And hey, B, late for the live, didn't have a question, but thank you very much, brother. Appreciate that. Really do. Thank you, sir. But I didn't want people to have to feel obligated to that, or that you're getting like there's somehow or another better content somewhere else. Cause I mean, it is what it is. Like I say, and I fully am aware this is really more of a podcast. This is something you're going to listen to more than watch. So, but I did want to put maybe just some of the trash blooper reels. There's some of them were golden, man. Like, like the misspeaks and things like that. And what you have to remember is that the videos that I don't do any editing. I wanted the concept of this whole channel was not to be edited, not to be polished, not to be any of that. It's just a conversation. It's just us hanging out here at the shop, talking about stuff. And so when things are really refined and edited and all of that, it to me, it just took away from it. And I get this can be a little bit harder to listen to, harder to digest, especially given the fact that all of my videos just about are long format. But again, a lot of guys like that because you'll have me yammering in the background about whatever, talking to you guys or whatnot, and they'll be doing something completely different. So, it's just kind of cool car related chit chat in the background. But that's why I never did anything like that. I didn't want to offer up any like, hey, you have to be a member to get this or whatever. Yeah, I thought about it and I was like, man, there's guys that might not be able to afford that. And I don't want to put them in a weird position too, if you do support the channel, like Gary did. And, both Gary's actually in this one, Chuck's a big supporter too. It doesn't matter what the dollar amount is. I do appreciate every consideration that you give. So I just didn't want anybody to feel obligated. That's the main thing. And, but the Patreon page, I thought that'd be kind of funny for some of the guys. Plus a lot, it's all adult, not adult. It's not like that. It's just, it's me going, fuck, cause I'll be in the middle of doing so. Anyway, the point of me saying none of it's edited is that if I snub something 6 minutes into the video and I absolutely butcher it, I have to kill the video and start all over again from scratch. And sometimes it works out great. Sometimes it's not as good. So anyway, there's been a couple of them that were actually I lost 6 or 7 videos that would have been like really short, just something really to laugh at because it's me completely butchering something or misspeaking, like royally screwing something up. And then knowing that I screwed it up when I said it, and then I have to go back and fix. Anyway, it's just a mess. So the power of not editing in that respect. But that's like I say, that's really more the format of the show. It's just us, and it's all basically just a lot more of a raw content than anything. But thank you again, Gary's out there. Appreciate it, guys. Stuart's asking, are you still running the 305s? And at what point do you need to switch to a larger tire? Good question. I know some guys that are running the 315 45 17s, and they are, I would say that they're overtired. But if you're asking what would be the best time to go with the bigger tire, I would say somewhere around the 800 to 900 horsepower to the rear wheel range is when you'd want to get off the 305 and go with maybe that 315. The 315 will be more consistent, and it will offer you a little bit better, a little bit softer hit, if you will, potentially. More sidewall. It's just going to absorb a little bit more force out of the hole. But at about so I know that Mean Cat runs the 315 and he's a 285 upper, no stock lower. So no aftermarket lower on his car. He runs the larger tire, and his ratio with the tire being bigger than mine actually has him identical to me in terms of RPM going through the traps. He's just going faster because of the bigger tire. And he likes that tire because it offers him up more consistency, whereas the smaller tire may not have been as consistent with how hard he's hitting it. But that is about where I would suggest that it would be more mandatory that you run the larger tire. But I know that Racer X, we were just talking about Racer X a minute ago, Racer X ran the 305 45 17s, making 815 or 825 with his car to the rear wheels on that Mustang dyno, well over 900 on a dyno jet. And that car was fairly consistent, as you guys well remember. So I think that the 305 45 17, if that's what you're going to run, or 305 45 18, is going to be a tire that you can run over a very wide power range, but 5.7 stock stuff all the way through very well modified Hellcats, and it'll serve you very well. Why Knuckles asking, what up, B? What's up, man? Asking, hey, how's it going, brother? It's going good. Hope it's going good. Time to ask what you think about the flex fuel kits where it reads the E value and adjusts the fuel off of that. Are those trustworthy? So here's the thing. Yeah, they're trustworthy. The problem is they don't adjust timing. And if you're not adjusting timing, then you're not going to take advantage of the echo that you've put into the tank. You might say that those are probably better for boosted applications because the NA cars are really not going to benefit from E85 the way that the boosted cars would. But even then, it doesn't adjust timing. And where timing comes into play with boosted cars is that you can get closer to that 18, 19 degrees of timing that you can get out of a naturally aspirated car. Well, you just can't do that with boost. Well, you can with E85. So running a little bit of E85 in the car, or running a little bit of timing, I should say, with E85 in the car, you're just not really going to capture the gains that I think that you're really looking for. And if you're switching back and forth between tunes, you'd be switching back and forth between fuel maps anyway. So a little bit redundant, if you ask me. But that's kind of where we're at. These Mopar operating systems, that's about the best you can hope for, frankly. And again, Gary, thank you, buddy. Oh, Sovereign's telling Eric that demonology might be there. Oh, Dan said, I appreciate your content. Please keep it up. I enjoy it. I like hanging out with you guys. My dad saying, don't change anything. I'm not going to change it. There's no reason to change anything. And it just, like I say, if I changed anything about it, it wouldn't be the channel. It wouldn't be the same thing. But I appreciate that. Thank you for the kind words. Dan saying, it's the internet. The first liar doesn't have a chance. I know, right? Stuart, good question. He's saying, why do so many Hemi owners think they can out-budget Hellcat owners? There's several channels that are notorious for that. Yeah, so to that point, I don't know. There's always somebody that's going to say, well, can I beat the Hellcat? Because the Hellcat is the yardstick. It doesn't matter if you've got another Mopar, if you've got a Mustang, if you've got Camaros, doesn't matter what you have, the Hellcat, not even talking about the Red Eye, the Hellcat is the yardstick in quarter mile competition, in quarter mile performance, even over and above the Demon in many cases. So, you know, it's like they can out budget a Hellcat. I think what you mean by that is, you know, they can build up their car at the same price or a less price and beat a Hellcat. If you're talking sticker for sticker, sticker price for sticker price, I don't know of a scenario where you wind up in the black on or with that proposition. I've looked into it, and I can tell you that, let's say a $15,000 Pro Charger install on a $50,000 car puts you at $65,000. You can get a Hellcat for $65,000, put a drag pack on it, take them to the drag strip, and the Hellcat will bounce that Pro Charged 392. It would be an embarrassment. Now on the highway, if the Pro Charge car was tuned properly, it might not lose by as much. It just won't look as ugly. I I had a guy with a Pro Charge 392 try to test his luck against Little Miss Revlon back here, and didn't quite go so well for him on the highway. So, I don't even know what was done to the car. I just know it was Pro Charge. You could hear it. He decided he was going to try his luck against me, and he got freaking scalded. So, better luck next time for him. It's street setup, though. You're not expecting much. It's only 535, 540 horse to the rear wheels with that kit. It's basically 110, 120 horsepower in essence to the rear wheels for a street kit on gasoline. So you want to take it further than that, you can. But again, now you're talking dollar for dollar. And there are a bunch of mid 9-second Hellcats running around out there that trap 145, 146 miles an hour. And it'll always be a Hellcat. And at the end of the day, that means something to a lot of people. So anyway, I don't know. That was a thing there for a while. And the funny thing about this is that I'm the guy that was designing some of the camshafts for some of the guys that were out there trying to, outrun Hellcats, try to beat a Hellcat at their own game. And I was like, yeah, I'd put the Hellcat to shame too, given the amount of money that you spent, and you got one of my cams in the car. So you know what? I win either way. So kind of funny stuff. Clay's asking what tires is Demonology running on the Demon. I think those are Mickey Thompson ET drags, but I'm not exactly sure of the size. But they're a larger size though. He's a big tire car. Eric's hanging out with Sovereign about Racer X's outro from Texas. Clay's talking about the Fleetwood with the GM 6.2 liter diesel. Yep. That would have been the stroked version of the 307 with a high nickel block. That was actually an interesting block because a lot of guys would take that block, repurpose them as gasoline engines, and that block would actually handle a lot of power. Clay saying, really, the Hellcat's a gold standard of performance. Yeah, and it has been for a while. Let's see. Sovereign's hanging out with Eric. Clay saying, but if we're talking classic Mopar, the gold standard would be the 440. I would agree with that. As far as a street engine and an engine that's just fun, milkshake and drag race, stoplight to stoplight, 440 is really, really hard to beat. 8th mile 440 is a nasty, nasty engine, by the way. Let's see. Eric's saying, hanging out with Sovereign. Dan saying, the thing about the factory supercharged cars is they do what they do with the factory. That is true. White saying the Demonology has a 15-inch conversion. Yeah, he's got a 15-inch conversion. ET drags. I'm sure it's at least a 29-inch tire, probably 29 1250, 29 1150, something like that. Stuart's saying he saw a drag pack for the first time. It's a perfect car except for not having a VIN. Very true. Eric's saying, I was told by a friend with some awesome Fox bodies and a T-Bird that horsepower comes in many levels of cool. Got the arm or the thumbs up and the eyeball. I'm so used to that being a thing. Sorry. Flexing my thumb. Gary's saying, was low on gas in my 6.4 Scat. No low fuel light, but lost power out of a parking lot. Did the fuel pick up some air? Fine after that. Yes, it did. So what ends up happening is the way that gas tank is shaped, it's shaped kind of like this, and the pump sits like this, straight up and down, but there's like this little deal on it, on the bottom of it, where it sits pressed against the tank. And chances are, yes, you just sucked in a little bit of air. And if it was that low, it can absolutely do that. Dan saying he's got a 70 Challenger RTSE with a 440. It's epic. They're really, really fun cars. So what's funny is that Gary's saying, thanks, B. Thank you, buddy. What's funny is that a lot of guys don't realize the 440, it's kind of a funny engine, really, because its roots go back to, honestly, they go back to 1957 with the release of the original Mopar big block. The 360, or actually the 350, it was originally a 350 cubic inch block. It went from 350, 360, 383, and then the RB block, which the RB block, I should say, is your 413, 426, 426 Hemi, and then 440. So anyway, what's funny is that the cylinder heads for the 440, not talking about the max wedge cars, just the 440 or the 383, would work really well on that original 350 Golden Commando, which, by the way, would have been the engine that Christine would have had. Not the Poly, by the way. Christine was a big block car. But what's interesting is that those heads would have worked great on that cubic inch, 350, 360, 383, they work really well, but 440, a little bit small, but they fixed all of that with a max wedge. So that's good. But the good thing about them is that they rip to 4,700 RPM. And I've had tons of them on dynos. At least I did back in the day, in between 440s and 426 Hemis. I've driven all of them, and I can tell you that if given my preference, I go any of the wedge motors, but I go max wedge with the wedge motors over the Hemi any day of the week, just from driving, from a driving experience. Again, Gary's saying, thanks, B. Thank you, buddy. Thank you. Thank you more than you know, buddy. Big time. Clay's saying Ford. Clay's liking the Ford 460. Probably the best of the 385 series. I would agree. Built a lot of displacement with that. And I had in my Mark III Superformance Cobra a 10 over 460. And that thing was pretty nasty. Had a Super Cobra jet head, single plane intake, HP 950 Holly, one of my earliest cams that I ever put together. That thing was disgusting. And that car would haze the tires in fourth gear. It had a TKO in it, 75, 80 miles an hour, rolling to the throttle, and the car would just start to, it was controllable. It would drift. It would start hazing the tires. Pretty interesting, but that's just from a roll. Eric Bailey's like, I know, I was like, I'm so used to doing the flex thing. Sovereign saying, talking to Dan Busey, vanishing point. So yeah, listen, all of the, I forgot about the 400. Damn. 350, 361, 383, 426 is RB, 440 is RB, 413 is in there. The 400 is the largest displacement of the lower deck, just like the 400 small block is the largest displacement of that particular architecture. But yeah, the 413, and then you had the 413 max wedge and the 426 max wedge. Eric's saying, I need a class on how to use the software in my truck and Race Pack IQ3. I wish I could help you with that, man. I do not have much experience with any of that stuff. But yeah, the thing is that the reason why the Mopars had such a following the 440 was out for a long time, and whatever it lacked in outright head flow, what it more than made up for was snap of the fingers, instant response, especially when you mated that thing up with a decent intake manifold, do a little bit of work to the heads, they come in somewhere around 10-1. Yeah, they didn't have the greatest head flow, but they had a ton of velocity and they made a lot of power under wide open throttle, under the curve, so to speak. But in this case, this isn't under the curve or, on the curve at wide open throttle. This is under the curve at partial throttle. And it's all the reason in the world why the 426 Hemi didn't sell that well. People say, oh, it was expensive. No, it was not expensive, not by today's standard of expensive anyway. And there were engine options that were considerably more expensive than the 426 Hemi would have been. So you can't really use that logic and say, well, it was just an expensive thing. No, it wasn't expensive. Number one, the Hemi didn't work in any of the northern states because cold starts were a problem. And they were just kind of dogs if you weren't breaking your foot off in them above 4,500 or 5,000 RPM. So, but yeah, there's a lot of folks that would say that was the far and away better engine. All of the cool cars from the movies were all 440s. The Chargers, the 68 Chargers from Bullitt were 440. Vanishing Point was 440. Dirty Mary Crazy Larry, I believe that was a 440 Charger. Generally, it was actually a 383 car. And then you had, or would have been initially, a 383 car. But the black car, I think, would have actually been a 440 car. The original, before it was generally just, anyway, that was a 69. And then you had, I got to sit here and think of the rest of them. Let's see. Oh, Clay saying there was also, well, the 440, all of those are wedge headed. So yeah, 440 wedge. Clay's asking, is there any major difference between the 318 LA and the 318 Magnum? There's some differences, and you can think of those differences a lot of the same as you think of like a Vortec 350 and an older school 350. A lot of it has to do with how the intake manifolds bolt up to heads. But for the most part, they would all bolt up to the same transmissions. There's not going to be any difference there. Dan saying the 413 ended up as a truck motor. I know that 413 ended up in a lot of sedans, ended up in a lot of Coronets, large sedans, things that just needed cubic inches to get them to move into power accessories. Oh, Clay's saying the 440 was available. 440 was available on everything. Monaco, any C body, you could get a 440 in. Talking about Winnebago motorhomes, yeah, they use Dodge chassis. So a lot of companies used that architecture, not only because it worked, but it was inexpensive at the time. Less expensive, I should say. Raging saying he wished that Mopar would have put the max wedge heads on the 440, especially the six-pack cars. A lot of people would agree with you on that. There's a lot of folks that would also say that if you got an A12 car, you should have had max wedge heads on that too. And no reason why they wouldn't. I have no idea. Clay saying the 440 was available in the trucks. Yes, indeed it was. Modern Red saying came in way late. What's up, Professor B? Got sidetracked. That's all good, brother. Let's see. Oh, Eric went with a 392 swap instead of a 440. A lot more power out of that. And Dan saying, I wouldn't doubt if the 413 was used in motorhomes. The 413 would have been just, it was the engine before the 440. So, Clay's talking about a large displacement 426. I don't know that it would make the 440 that much better. It would just shift the power curve to the right. That's pretty predictable. The reason why they went with the 440 in that respect, with the heads and everything else, is because you want, for that application, outright horsepower isn't really what you're looking for. You're looking for something with a little bit more oomph down low. Rip to Zan saying, "Sup, B," and everybody. But, well, guys, I've got to go ahead and wrap it up. We are coming up on 2 hours. But, yeah, just remember, for you guys that have put in the request for the shirts on the Instagram, it's BA Mason 721. And if, like I say, I've got 5 large, 2 medium, and 2 XLs left. I've got a couple of triple X's spoken for already. And I'll be sending them out until I run out, basically. So first come, first served. If you get one, that means you got one. If you didn't get one, it means I ran out. So, but with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Guys, we're going to sit and don't bend it. Keep your shiny side up. Love each and every one of y'all. Would not do this without you. Get out there and do something cool. For somebody, chances are they really do need it more than you know. And guys, have a great one. I will see y'all on the next one. And as the parts start coming in, I'll do the same thing. Like I say, I'll keep y'all posted with a little bit of the weight loss program that little Miss Revlon's going on. And hopefully get the other design of the shirts in, and we'll be doing the same thing with those too. So with that, that's a wrap. Adios, guys. Take care.